Hello and welcome to this video on sheep, a bit of a rare unknown gem in the Mutable Instruments Euro Rack lineup. Here's what's to come in the video. So Sheep is an alternate firmware directly from Mutable Instruments for their own module, Tides. The Mark I Tides was released in the March of 2014, and the alternate firmware Sheep followed later that year in December 2014. And when Mutable Instruments released the Sheep firmware, which was and still is a free download that you can flash onto a Mark I Tides module, they also released a smaller limited run of Sheep panels. I bought one of those back in 2014 and despite using the Sheep firmware from time to time, never actually used the panel. So I swapped that over later in the video for those that like a bare naked PCB and a panel swap. But the Mark I Tides I think is a fantastic oscillator, and that's how I've used it for years, as an oscillator for audio or a complete voice. It has a nice layout and a range of easy to use controls and modulation options for wave shaping. So we'll actually go through Tides first in the video, but you can of course skip ahead past the Tides sounds and patches right into the Sheep firmware if you wish. And let's quickly run down Sheep before the patches, and the Sheep firmware completely replaces the Tides firmware and then implements wavetable synthesis. It offers 3 banks controlled by this bank button here, and then you have your different wavetables laid out on a 2D grid with smooth interpolation, controlling through those with the row and column controls, both of which have a CV input. Mutable Instruments say to think of Sheep as a sort of director's cut or dub version of Braid's WMAP mode, and you get banks that are additive harmonics when this LED is green, the next bank that's off is more PWM focused, and the red or orange LED is waves directly from that WMAP mode from Braid's. And as well as the bank button there to move through those banks, you have an input where you can trigger that button, so you can use external trigger or gate rhythms to actually cycle through the banks of waveforms. And as well as the wavetable selection controls, Sheep retains the smoothness control that we have on the original Tides, which is a low pass left of centre, a smoothing low pass, and then we add some wave folding, adding some spikes and extra harmonics right of centre. And that, like the other controls, has a CV input too. The frequency controls remain the same, with coarse tuning and fine tuning on the FM attenuator when there's nothing patched, and when you do patch into FM, that's an FM attenuator, and you have a volt per octave for the pitch too. And again, like Tides, there's a level input here which is normaled fully open, so this just drones like a standard oscillator, but patching in here replaces that normaled voltage, so you can level control the main output with envelopes or anything else, turning Sheep, or Tides, into a complete voice. Compared to Tides, the outputs here change, but we do have the same unipolar and bipolar outputs here, but the low and high Tides you find on Tides are replaced with a sub-octave square wave output and a 1-bit output, which is a kind of aggressive 1-bit kind of fuzzy version of that main bipolar wave. So we'll explore the sounds of both Tides as an oscillator and of course Sheep in the video, and this is a video that I've been meaning to make for probably a decade now, sharing my love for that original Tides and Sheep, and it's something that I wanted to highlight as I think a lot of people may have missed this freely available Sheep firmware. The patches are all listed down below as always, those patches are also on screen, so skip around as you like, and without further ado, let's dive in. So let's first just take a look at Tides, as I really enjoy Tides as an oscillator, We'll just patch all of the outputs here and have a quick listen and very quickly build a voice because I want to get to sheep, although there are some other patches to explore with tides. Going down the outputs here, this is the high output, which is a pulse. And that will PWM from that slope output. The low tide is a trigger that's just unaffected by any other control. It's just a very short trigger at the rate of the oscillator. The unipolar out is a unipolar out, but it does have a different shape to the actual main bipolar output there. So depending on what you're doing, one may be more suited to the other, or you may want a slightly softer unipolar wave to go with the bipolar wave. And then we have the main bipolar out there, knobs all at noon, that's a triangle wave, and we have a slope that skews that between falling or rising saws or ramps. You can change the curve on the shape control, and all of these are very interactive, as you can see in here. And then the smoothness works like a low pass filter to the left of noon. So if we go to a saw wave, it's like a non-resonant low pass filter, slewing that into a cleaner wave. And then right of center, that will wave fold. And as you have the level control and a volt per octave, you can turn this into a voice without other modules, other than an envelope patched into level here. And there you can hear it's working as a voice, volt per octave and an envelope to level. And a really nice interactive set of controls. If I just add some modulation very quickly to some of these parameters too. This is the same envelope with a bit of attenuation to shape and smoothness. Let's get into just two more patches very quickly. I'll run them down as Patreon exclusives in much more detail. I just want to show a couple more tide sounds before we actually get to sheep. So just really quickly here, I just wanted to build up a drone, focusing on just showing how modulating all these parameters on tides just sounds really good. Now just going direct to its main outputs here, the bipolar out. This is 3 different LFOs from Oct coming into the shape, the slope and the smoothness. And typically I'd slow these right down if I was building a drone. Go for a much more slowly evolving patch, but keeping that moving that bit faster. I also have an offset and LFO this time into level, so if I reduce the offset, we've got some tremolo kind of pulsing of that level as well. And these kind of evolving, highly modulated kind of drone patches work great to build rhythmic structures from. I'm patching this output through stacking cables into 2 channels of an Optomix. The 2 channels are being struck with different rhythms and they're left and right, kind of hard left and right stereo in the mix. And there's also a little additional envelope there that's the same to both channels to create this softer kind of undertow under the pings. As well as that, I'm taking the bipolar output and patching it through a VCA with some extra clipping and shaping on Manic there. Just to get something that bit more harmonically rich, kind of punching down the centre between these hard left and right Optomix sounds. Now adding in some big stereo effects. We've got the makings, I think, of a great sounding patch that you could pitch sequence and play with and articulate however you wish. And as a final patch here with tides, I'm using all 4 outputs and articulating them differently to build this massive kind of multi-phonic, symphonic oscillator ensemble, shall we say, from just a single oscillator, tides. So starting with the smallest sound here, these orange cables are the low output, which was that trigger that's unaffected by the controls, just a short trigger that just tracks the pitch of the oscillator. That's coming into a VCA, just with a short envelope, and I'm using an LFO to pan it around. So that's just kind of dancing around, creating some stereo image. Then pulsing on quarter notes, I have the unipolar output here into a low pass gate, the Optomix, with a quarter note envelope just making that pulse, and another LFO at a different rate to its panning. So we have this kind of rhythmic backdrop between kind of like low quarter note pulse from the low pass gate and clicky, raspy little pulse in the top end, and both are just swirling around in stereo. The high output is then running through this filter swell here, low pass filter with an envelope to its cutoff. And as it's the slope that affects PWM, the LFO I have patched in there is creating this rich PWM sound. And just a single pulse with PWM always just sounds good. Just a nice backbone for the patch there. And then playing on a slightly less frequent rhythm, I'm taking the unipolar output into a VCA. I have another LFO to the shape there, the curve of the wave, and a sequence to the smoothness, so we're sequencing in and out of more and less folding, recurving and bending those wave shapes. And that slope that's affecting PWM is tilting that wave, as we saw too. So if we start with that PWM as our main kind of backbone from the high output, the bipolar, kind of main output if you like, sits on top of that like an accent. We then have the quarter note output from the unipolar out, well, the part that's playing a quarter note, that is. And then the raspy little pulse up top. 4 outputs from tides, 4 layers, just a massive kind of sound space from that single oscillator. So let's get this panel swapped over here. Got the sheep panel from the limited run that Emily did a while back. Pull off the knobs. Got these tools you may find useful from Seaside Modular, the Submarine Eurorack nut tool set. If you can hear it over the crisping of the packet. Okay, all those screws off, panel off. Ooh, bare naked tides. Let's get the sheep panel and just take a moment to peel back. Ooh. Peel back the sheath. And let's get the sheep panel on there. So nuts back on the module. And then I'll use the submarine nut tool set to tighten them all up. And finally, knobs back on, and I'll get the firmware on here, and we should be good to go. So let's start here with sheep, like we did with the original Tides firmware, and go through and listen to and look at each of the outputs here. We'll start with the 1-bit output, but just to set the context first, because it's a 1-bit version of the main bipolar output here, here's the bipolar out. And in bank A, this is a set of additive sine harmonics. So if you imagine all of this through a 1-bit processor, it's kind of like the best fuzz pedal you can imagine. This is the Green Trace 1-bit output. And tuned down low, it's kind of an absolute monster. An absolute beast down low. The sub output is always a -1 octave square wave sub, unaffected by any of the other controls. And then we have the unipolar 0 to 8 volt version and bipolar -5 to +5 volt version of our main waveform. Bank A here, smoothing in the middle. We can fold to the right. There's a much less aggressive fold than the tides mode, which serves as a nice musical, warm way of adding harmonics to the wavetables. And it does filter to the left, so when we get some richer sounds, I'll come back to this control. Say start to fold this or filter it. Now going to bank B, which is the LED off, that's listed as a PWM bank that can alias, and it's not all square waves that pulse width modulate. The behaviour is very much PWM-like across those wavetables. And I hope it's coming across, although I move quite fast through these rows and columns here, how smooth this wavetable interpolation is. I hope that's coming across really clearly. So if we go across to that 1-bit output there, that is affected by the smoothing, as it is a 1-bit process version of the main out. And you can see those wavetable changes in this bank are having an effect too. And then finally, bank C here with the red LED for the bank is the wave map mode, WMAP, from Braids. Lots of lovely vocal. Tones in there. So in this first patch, we're looking at bank A, the additive waveforms, and I'm layering the 1-bit output with the main output through some reverb here. And just letting LFOs work through those rows and columns in the wavetable. So this is the main output from Sheep, just used as a voice fully here with volt per octave signal for pitch, an envelope to level, I'm using Manic here as a utility to offset that level to save patching and unpatching. There it is, just fully open. And we're shifting through these additive waves, the kind of harmonic series of signs that we get in there. You could say take an envelope, a copy of the one I was using to level to the smoothness, and let that envelope in these folded harmonics, or filter back. And this is more like having a low pass filtered version where you're enveloping open the filter. Now going back to enveloping this, that's our voice. But I also have the 1-bit version coming into a low pass gate here. So muting this one and just fully open. It's like it's going through this crazy fuzz, which it kind of is. 1-bit heavy-handed processing and those really rich ripping tones work great in a low pass gate. So sending an envelope to the low pass gate. It's worth noting we do have the envelope to level still. If I go back in my mixer to the main out, that level doesn't affect the 1-bit output. So I'm using an envelope in the low pass gate here to get that sound. And these two outs layer very well. If we go back to the main and say add reverb just to the main output, quite a lot of reverb, and let the 1-bit in the low pass gate come through dry in the mix. I think we have a great sound. So here's a fun patch that you can do on many VCOs with multiple outputs, or subs and main outputs, and then a pair of VCAs and an inverter. And what I'm doing here is taking the sub into my VCA, the sub is the green trace and cable here, and then I'm taking the bipolar output to both CV inputs on 2 VCAs. The first VCA is normal level, and the second is inverted, and that's giving us a new stereo waveform where the bipolar output AM amplitude modulates the sub. That's then coming into the low pass gate here to just be articulated with triggers and envelopes. And there's a beat in the background. Let's remove the beat. So opening up my low pass gates here, this is the sound. And you can hopefully see clearly the sub and the impact of using the bipolar waveform to control the level. 2 VCAs, but the level is inverted on one of them. If they were the same, we'd just have a mono image here, the same waveform on both sides. But I'm taking these 2 VCAs as a left and right signal into 2 low pass gates that go hard left and right in the mix. And as I go from a normal AM sound here, amplitude modulation, which is the sub amplitude modulated via that main bipolar out. Let me invert this, and certainly in headphones you'll hear it kind of open up in stereo. So we're using these 2 VCAs here to create the stereo image, and then the opto mix to articulate the sound. If I play my sequence again, I have a pitch sequence and random voltages to the row and column for this bank B wavetable and to the smoothness. So all those wavetable changes will be coming in to CV modulate these VCAs. They're going to come through this AM, this amplitude modulation. And again, if I just make this a steady mono image where it's the same on both sides, certainly in headphones that now feels a little bit dull. And then putting envelopes into the opto mix here and some additional triggers. And as I say, you could try this with multiple outputs from different oscillators or 2 different oscillators with VCAs. It's a fun way to make a stereo patch. drums back in. So here we've got these kind of sub-shaped super drones. We're patching the sub back into the modulation and FM inputs. Now if I pull this out for a second, there's a huge reverb. Let's mute that for now. Now pulling everything out, here's my sound. It's the bipolar output. Currently we've nothing happening in terms of any modulation. These patches are actually pulling through any signal at this point. And it's the bank C wavetable. And I'm going to use the sub to patch back into these controls and to shape things. And it will impart this kind of subharmonic character if I patch back into, say, smoothness here. Maybe find a more obvious looking wave. You can see we get waveforms that take 2 cycles to complete. There's folding on the positive part of this sub, the blue trace here, but not on the negative. If I was to say use this as an FM, it would actually cause some feedback because the FM would affect the sub as well. And it results in the PWM of that sub goes totally unstable in quite an interesting way, up high. But you can see we get faster bits of waveforms there that then slow down. And as I bring up the level of these ones, all of these blue cables are just a split of this sub signal here. You can see that's only happening on that portion of the wave where the sub signal, that square wave, is high. Maybe a bit easier to see there. So if I use VCAs, which I'm just using as attenuators here, we can make this modulation dynamic and have the modulation depth change over time. So if I patch in some LFOs, again it's the sub into these VCAs patched back to modulate the other parameters. We're varying the level of this sub feedback based wave shaping and FM here. It gives a great evolving drone sound. It's really complex and maybe suggests being a kind of bigger dual complex oscillator or a whole patch worth of wave shaping. But it's just sheep, patched back into itself, with 2 of them here patched through VCAs so we can vary the level of that sub coming back to modulate row and column. Listen to this as I take the sub down, inverted. It's like a kind of monster growl meets sputtering motorbike engine or something. I really love it down there. Back into the reverb. So here's a really fun patch using the 1-bit output from Sheep as our main sound. Got some drums, some different layers and effects. Let's remove those for now. And here's the main layer. This is the 1-bit output, the green cables here that's been split. 1 copy goes into my VCA with an 1/8 note envelope just pulsing away in that VCA, and that comes into the mixer. If I remove the modulation, you can just hear that 1-bit envelope quite simply but I'm using two sequences, one to column and one to row. So hopefully you can see and hear, they're almost like hard sync overtones as we're pushing into more tiny pulses being part of this waveform. I'm then using an envelope to smoothness. There it is in its neutral position. To kind of fade in more harmonics. You can hear that kind of snatches at the harmonics a little bit. And then all of this sound that you're hearing just bleeding straight through as an oscillator does, comes into two low pass gates. So it's the same sound there split into both sides, with triggers to the two envelopes as hard left and right. Extra fast little kind of rhythmic articulations. So if I turn that down and bring the main sound in, which is just the one bit out through the VCA, fading these in, adds this really lovely kind of fast additional layer. Now on top of those, I'm taking the main bipolar out and modulating the level, which doesn't affect the one bit out, but it does affect the bipolar out, into some fully wet reverb. So it's just kind of pinging off a sound that then feeds this bigger effect. And here they all are together. So the level on Sheep is almost like a send level to my effects. I'm using an envelope to CV control. And then just some drums to back things up. A nice chirpy one bit output focused patch. So one thing I was really keen to try here was this bank input, which takes a trigger or gate and cycles through the banks of wavetables. You can see that there with the green LED, no LED, or a red LED for banks A, B and C. And I've really kind of amplified everything here by getting into some fun polymetric patterns where we have sequences of step lengths 4, 5 and 7 steps, and then every 3 steps moving through the bank. I have a 16th note envelope, the green trace here, coming into level, so Sheep is a complete voice in itself here. I am sidechaining in Manic, which I'll bring back in when the drums come in. If I mute the sequences that are coming through here you can hear my steady sound. On unmuting the roll sequence, which is 4 steps, you can see that active there on data and hopefully hear that 4-step, 4/16th note sequence. Here's the 5-step sequence to column, and then a 7-step sequence to the smoothness. So all together in this particular bank. But then of course we've got, and I'm just muting these on my sequencer off screen, every 3 steps moving through the banks. So if I enable this 4-step roll sequence, while cycling through every 3 steps, this really lovely polymetric interplay between different sequences of different lengths. Moving banks and column modulation, and moving banks and smoothness, and then all together, everything back in again. And if I've got this right, this would take 2,100 steps before the pattern actually repeats, in that that's a number that's divisible by everything that's going on here. 3 steps at 4, 5 and 7. Now sonically it doesn't sound like a over 2,000 step length sequence, it's just that interplay, this kind of ever evolving, kind of feels random even though it isn't. These are just repeatable patterns. You've got this lovely rolling kind of intense wavetable and folding filtering shift. Now sidechaining this again, letting a copy of that feed a big reverb, and bringing in my drums again. So what do you think of Sheep? Was it something you were aware of, something that you knew of, that you've already tried, that you'd like to try? Let us know down in the comments. There's some extended and exclusive patches from this video, exclusively on patreon.com/DivKid for those that support over there. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!